Well, this was a monster order indeed, an order both Boeing and WestJet needed. In Canadian Airline WestJet's largest order in the history of the airline on Wednesday, 3 September, WestJet placed a firm order with Boeing for another 7 Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners, plus 4 options, alongside a massive order for 60 more 737-10s with an option for 25 more. Like I said, this large order represents the most significant order in the Calgary-based airline's history. But not only that, this was the largest ever order for Boeing aircraft in Canadian history. The airline now has a firm order book, the largest in Canada, consisting of 7 Boeing 787-9s, 15 737-8s, and 102 737-10s. In all, firm orders total 125 Boeing jets, and with options included, that number tops out at least at 176. WestJet Chief Executive Officer Alexis von Hosenbreck said that with the addition of these aircraft, WestJet has the largest order book of any airline in Canada and will double our fleet of Dreamliners, underpinning our growth plans and our commitment to affordable travel options for Canadians and exciting career paths for our people, adding that these highly efficient and comfortable aircraft are critical to the growth and renewal of our fleet and will also significantly improve our fuel consumption. And CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Stephanie Pope, chimed in as well, saying, "We are honored that WestJet has once again placed its trust in Boeing with a major investment that builds on our 3 decades of partnership and solidifies their fleet for decades to come." Pope continued that we look forward to supporting WestJet's exciting growth as they leverage the 737 MAX and the 787 Dreamliner to serve even more passengers with great efficiency and comfort. The new order is slated to be filled by 2034, however, a specific timeline hasn't yet been announced. As the fleet currently stands, this order book represents an over 80% increase in its fleet size, with a 113.5% increase including options. So why is this WestJet Dreamliner order such a big deal? Well, the new 787s will support WestJet's aspiration for exponential growth of its long-haul network, while at the same time improving its operational efficiency, alleviating the stress that the current modest fleet of 7 787s suffers during the peak summer season. As a matter of fact, so stretched was WestJet's widebody ability that recently the airline was forced to wet lease a Boeing 777-200ER from Spanish charter operation privilege style because it only had 6 aircraft available during the busy June travel season. That situation highlighted the strain the airline was under during the summer, operating a very demanding schedule to 8 Asian and European destinations from its hub in Calgary, with no backups available for support, and if one was out for any length of time, they were out of luck. Many days WestJet saw its entire fleet in the air at the same time. The leased Boeing 777 had been operating the Calgary to London Heathrow leg from late May to late June, as WestJet's only spare was being repaired in San Antonio, Texas, due to unscheduled maintenance, incurring significant operational costs to the Canadian carrier. According to Airways magazine, after operating 4 former Qantas Boeing 767-300ERs from 2015 to 2020, WestJet introduced the 787 to its fleet in 2019 from an original firm order of 10 plus 10 options placed in 2017. However, that remaining order was canceled in 2022 after 7 deliveries, 9 aircraft completed, plus another on the production line in Charleston, South Carolina. But that pair of completed airframes found new life at Royal Air Maroc, still with WestJet branded cabins, while the 10th went to Air Canada. Okay, so how will this Dreamliner order help WestJet? While it's not exactly clear what a fleet of 14 new wide-body Dreamliners will look like, this does open the door to potential expansion outside Alberta, should WestJet decide to do so. However, there are limitations to operating the 787 Dreamliner in Calgary. One due to its high altitude, and the other is extreme heat in the summertime. Using an example from Airways magazine, they recall when WestJet had previously held slots in Dubai. The most direct route between the two cities has a flight time of approximately 14 hours. However, due to Russian airspace restrictions, the duration can increase up to 17 hours, making it one of the longest flights in the world. However, now the issue with Calgary is that while it has the longest runway in Canada at 14,000 feet, the airport is also nearly 3,600 feet above sea level. Combine that with temperatures that can get into the upper 30s Celsius, that's upper 90s for us Americans, well, that makes a route that long all but impossible with the 787 from Calgary. But if WestJet wants to travel greater distances with the Dreamliner, it will have to expand operations beyond Calgary. And Vancouver on Canada's west coast is a prime candidate for the Dreamliner to base, with its cooler temperatures on average and an elevation of a whopping 14 feet above sea level. Air Canada already flies their Boeing 787-9s to Dubai from Vancouver. Additionally, Edmonton, Alberta is served only by KLM from Amsterdam intercontinentally. Okay, so then how about the other half of the order? The MAX 10 half. Well, as for the other half of the order on the MAX side, WestJet is betting big on the 737-10, which still hasn't been certified yet, by the way, 4 years after its initial flight. And certification isn't expected until early 2026, maybe, pending a design resolution for an issue found on the CFM LEAP 1B anti-ice system. But regardless, WestJet is going all in on the MAX 10 for its future fleet, likely replacing its older next-generation 737 jets. As it stands now, WestJet will be the global launch operator for the MAX 10, the longest Boeing 737 variant. The carrier currently plans to operate the MAX 10 with 3 rows of 12 premium seats and 200 economy seats in the back, a configuration similar to Air Canada's A321neos minus a row of J-class seats. The Canadian carrier placed its initial MAX 10 order in September of 2022, comprising of 42 firm orders and 22 options. However, on signing day, that total grew to 102 firm orders with 47 options, meaning up to 149 737-10s. Back when that order was placed, WestJet CEO Alex von Hosenbroek said the 737-10 will be a game changer with one of the lowest cost per seat among mid-range aircraft. He said this will foster our low-cost positioning and affordability for Canadians. In addition, with this lower fuel consumption and reduced emissions, the 737-10 will further improve the environmental footprint of our fleet. And also, like the announcement almost 3 years ago, it was emphasized that the WestJet Group had one of the youngest fleets among established North American carriers, with an average age of just under a decade. Okay, well then what about long-haul competition for WestJet? Well, last month Alaska Airlines announced its intention to consolidate all 787 operations within the Alaska Air Group and centralize them in Seattle. Like WestJet, Alaska's business model is significantly based on connections through its central hub located on or near the Pacific coast of North America. Alaska said that its initial intercontinental network will consist of Seoul, Tokyo, Reykjavik, London Heathrow, and Rome. However, WestJet flies into all these destinations too. Out of WestJet's 9 intercontinental destinations served from Calgary, there will be overlap with Alaska on more than half of them. Still, it remains to be seen how this will play out. There's no doubt likely that the two carriers will directly compete for passengers traveling from the western half of the United States, from cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, and Las Vegas, to these Asian and European destinations. And in closing, Airways magazine makes a good point, saying that with similar networks, connections, and complex products, as well as a similar color palette, especially on the outside, it will be interesting to see how the two carriers carve out their market. So there you have it, a look inside the huge WestJet Boeing order and some of the ways that WestJet hopes it will make them a better airline. The important thing is what you think. So be sure and let me know down below. And until next time, as always, this is Maximus.